Hello and welcome to this evening webinar, Using Merchandise to Diversify Your Revenue. This is our second webinar in a series of ISM Trust and Delic sessions where a panel of industry experts discuss current issues for musicians and explore how we might find a solution to overcome these challenges, focusing on tools, skills and strategies to help music creators succeed. The ISM Trust is the Incorporated Society of Musicians' sister charity and works to ensure that all music professionals in the UK can reach their full potential by creating pioneering resources. You can find out more about the ISM Trust and Delic by following the links in the chat box. Before I hand over to Vic and our panelists for today, I have a few technical points for you. If you experience any technical difficulties, such as sound quality issues, please let us know in the chat box and we'll attempt to resolve the issue. Subtitles are available if you wish to enable or disable them by selecting the live caption option at the bottom of your screen. The webinar is being recorded and will be available to view on the ISM's Trust website, as well as on our YouTube channel and Delic's website. If you have any questions, please let us know in the questions box and we'll endeavour to answer as many of them as possible at the end. You can also join the conversation online by using the hashtag ISMxDelic, which is also on your screens. And now, without further ado, I will hand over to Vic and our panelists, and I hope you enjoy the webinar.
Thank you very much, Maria, and thank you all for joining us. Yes, it's an ISM Trust and Delic session number 2 in our sessions, the second series. And tonight or today, this evening, whenever you're watching, you might be watching this again, we are discussing using merchandise to diversify your revenue. Now, for many years, musicians sold merch like t-shirts, tote bags, posters, hats, and so on, simply as a way to make extra cash. But when fans stopped buying music, they flocked to piracy sites, they started using huge streaming sites and so on. Merch sales took on a new importance. Artists of all sizes now need to bring in additional revenue, especially those starting up in their career. Today, we look at the environmental cost of creating physical products and how musicians can earn responsibly, while discussing some of the most successful examples of fan merch in recent memory. My name is Vic Galloway. I'm a BBC broadcaster. I'm a journalist, author, musician, all-round music nerd who managed to turn his teenage hobby into his job. I'm a very lucky guy and I enjoy my job every day. And I have a wonderful panel to introduce you to. They're all going to tell you a little bit about themselves in a second, but in no particular order. Make some noise for all of them, of course. Kellie Dalton, who is sustainability strategy expert and responsible fashion advisor for the Right Project. Tertia Williams, co-founder of Terrible Merch, a product management company. Fiona Finteo, who's a multidisciplinary creative designer, DJ, and co-founder of the Slug label. Chiara Badiali, who is knowledge and sector intelligence lead at Julie's Bicycle, a non-profit organization helping the arts and culture take action on climate change. And the Delic CEO himself, John Maxwell Hobbs. Hello, folks. Good to see you all.
Hi.
Hi.
Can I ask you, just in that order again, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to the point you've got to now. So starting with you, Kellie.
Oh, so hi everyone. Yeah, as Vic said, my name is Kellie Dalton. I'm a sustainability strategist and a responsible fashion advisor. What that means is I just work with fashion and clothing, textile, footwear brands and help them to just identify where their main social and environmental impacts are across how they operate their whole entire business, but most importantly, right down their supply chain from where they manufacture to where their raw materials come from, and then the communities where their products end up as waste. How I got started was I wrote a letter to Catherine Hamnett at the very beginning of my career, and luckily Catherine answered my letter back, and she was my first kind of foray fashion industry. And then once I found out all the information that Catherine had, for anyone who doesn't know who Catherine is, she was a big designer in the 80s, 70s, 80s and 90s in the UK, but she was one of the first designers to kind of go down this route, looking at the social and environmental impacts of the clothing industry. So yeah, my first job was with her, so I kind of had no choice. The box was open on all the information for me, so that set the course of my career to where I am now. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Kellie. We'll come back to you soon. And of course, just jump into the conversation when you have an idea or an opinion on anything that's been discussed. Second up, Tertia Willis. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Tertia, and how you got to where you are with the Right Project and so on. Sorry, with
I'm
terrible
from...
merch. Sorry, terrible merch. I'm getting you
You're
mixed
fine.
up already.
It's good.
Kellie Dalton is the Right Project. Tertia is Terrible Merch. Tell us about the name of the company for a start.
Oh, well, actually, we've dropped the merch and now we're just terrible. But basically, we are we're a product management company, but we're also a platform that helps creators, specifically musicians, increase revenue by taking care of everything from sourcing to selling to fans. We have a big focus on sustainability, not overstocking high quality products, and creating financial relationships with fans. My background, I started. I was an art graduate. I went into private equity. Then I went into fashion, and I found my way from a sustainable fashion brand into merchandise via my co-founder, who was a major label signed musician, who needed some merchandise. So that's how we got here. We built a platform to help artists actually make real money from merchandise, because the system's kind of rigged and always has been. And yeah, but the thing that we do is just really, we're obsessed with music and content and the markets that exist in, and we really want to help artists and other creators now make a living from their music or their creations, which is impossible when the tech giants have raided the value of content everywhere else.
Wow, what an interesting journey you've had already. And just out of interest, why terrible? I mean, it seems like the worst possible name for a company, but it's obviously working for you.
Yeah, it's definitely working. It's a little bit postmodern. All merchandise was really terrible when we started, so we figured we'd start at the baseline. And actually, we make some of the best quality merchandise in the world, so we can call ourselves that without any worries.
Fair enough, fair enough. Well, I'm sure you're going to have loads to talk about in our discussion. Fiona, over to you. Tell us a little bit about what you do, because you seem to do a lot of different things.
That I do. I co-founded Slug, which is an independent record label and collective that's based in Bristol. Our music is more like underground dance music, and then with a little bit of mix of hip hop as well. So it's also like a mixed bag. Just imagine like a group of friends who love metal, hip hop, and jazz, and then making electronic music. That's like basically what we are. But my journey, music has always been just really, really part of my life, and I've always just liked drawing. So I started going to a design school, and in design school went into photography. And then after a while, I decided to come to the UK 10 years ago to go into film school. So I became a camera technician for a while. And I think over time, I had to leave the country to get my visa to come back. And then, so I can't really work on set anymore. So I just kind of defaulted back into graphic design, and then started up the label as something to do with my husband and our mate. And ever since then, I've just been doing all the back end, the admin. I did the branding for it, and then it all just kind of go from there, because a lot of people who just saw my artwork, I just started making album covers and merchandise designs for other artists, including for the label itself. And yeah, I've just been dealing with merch and just researching on a lot of different platforms to use, and this is where I am now.
Yeah, cool. Well, I love the sort of aesthetic of Slug, but again, I have to ask you about that title. Where does that come from? Slug.
Literally, it just came from nowhere. It's just one of those nights where we all just chatting about, we just wanted to, I think we were trying to merge words that don't match with each other. It's with an animal and then a body part, just some kind of half thing, and then Slug was the one.
It just felt right.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, it's lovely to have you with us this evening as well. Chiara, tell us a bit about what you do. I've given you a brief introduction, but I'm sure you can tell us a bit more.
Yeah, thanks. So Julie's Bicycle was set up actually from within the UK music industry nearly 15 years ago now, to kind of support the industry to take action on climate change. And that's still what we do, but we now also work across the wider sort of performing arts and creative community. doing everything from consultancy, sort of providing free guides and resources, providing advice, and sort of pulling together networks and basically making sure that we mobilize as many people who work in the arts to take climate action as possible. And I ended up doing that. So I'm a science graduate originally. I was going to run off and try and save the wolves. But then somewhere on the way, I spent a little bit too much time at the Portland Arms in Cambridge and also really fell in love with live music. So I went off to do that for a bit. And landed at Julie's Bicycle, which brings those two things together. And I haven't looked back since. That's been the last 8 years of my life. So it's great to meet everyone.
Yeah, and it's great to have you here as well. And I think we'll come to the kind of environmental impact of merch and what we can do to improve the way we live our lives and what we do as musicians and so on slightly later on. I think we'll start with talking about merch. But last but not least, John, tell us a little bit about your journey and a little bit about Delic itself and what you aim to do with Delic and how you got here.
All right, let's see. Well, I'm a musician. I'm a technologist. Vic and I met at BBC Scotland when we were both working there. I have worked in the mobile internet. I've worked in the club scene in New York City, and I did sound at places like CBGB's and The World, and also played in venues like that. Worked as a roadie, which we'll come to a little bit later because there's a merch story right there. And then my road has brought me to Delic, and Delic is a platform that is designed to support musicians in the creation of music all the way from idea to release. And we handle file transfers, asset management, tracking rights and attribution, which is extremely important for musicians in order to get paid, and handling tasks and pretty much everything that you need to do to create a piece of music other than play and record.
Okay, well, I'm sure you can bring in Delic's perspective and point of view during the course of the discussion as well. Like a brilliant panel, and for everyone watching, can I just reiterate what Maria said at the beginning, which is if you have a question, perhaps we haven't covered something in depth enough for you, or we haven't covered something that you want to talk about at all, or maybe you want to get more specific about something, or just whatever, from the most simple to the most complex, please put a question in the Q&A or chat box. We'll chat for about half an hour about various different subjects, and then we'll come to your questions in the last 10-15 minutes. So get involved, get your thinking cap on, just anything that you want to ask our illustrious panel about merchandise and diversifying your revenue. It's up to you. Okay, John, I'm going to start with you actually. As an artist, and everyone has a portfolio of work nowadays. I mean, I'm an artist, but I'm also a broadcaster. You do lots of different things. You're running Delic, but you're also an artist. I mean, big brushstroke question to start with. How important is merchandise to the artist and to you at the moment?
It's become more and more important just simply because of the nature of the way people consume and listen to and purchase music has changed so dramatically. Actually, about a year ago, I saw, and my jaw just dropped, I saw vinyl and CDs as referred to as merch. You know, all of a sudden, ancillary product, little objects that you have as well as the music, because we all get it in, you know, it comes to us out of the ether now. Fortunately, unlike about 10 years ago, people are paying for it, which is really good. And that's one thing that, you know, we need to stress over and over is, as an artist, you should be paid for the artistic work that you're doing. That is the essential core of what you're doing. It's not a loss leader to sell t-shirts. The good news is it's flipped over and more artists are starting to understand that now. You know, it was just the conventional wisdom that nobody would ever get paid for music again. That's changing, which is really great. But merch is a fun thing. And I mentioned I worked as a roadie for the band They Might Be Giants when they were on the tour for Lincoln, which was their second album. They were still, a small band. The entire tour was the two members of the band and the two road crew, all of us who happened to be named John. And as a road crew member, I was the monitor engineer, the driver, the guitar tech, and after the show, John Gurnan, the sound engineer and road manager, and I would grab a big flight case and run to the back of the venue and sell merch, which was the CDs, tapes, vinyl, and t-shirts. And then, I have a little artifact here. This is a mug that says They Might Be Giants, a coffee mug, because
Excellent.
we were coffee freaks. That's what kept things going. And John Flansburgh, the guitar player prior to the band, had been a graphic designer. So this is actually his artwork. And for some reason in the middle of the tour, this idea seized him and we got boxes delivered to us by the manager, and these sold really, really well.
Everyone loves a mug. I mean, people
Yeah.
come around to my house and they go, "Oh God, even your mug cabinet is rock and roll," because I've got loads from different bands. Either people have given me or I bought, or people send me and so on. Yeah, why not? Have a mug. I think they're good. I certainly, buy a band's mug if I like them.
Exactly. And the thing is, I don't listen to They Might Be Giants, several times a week, but I do actually think about them now several times a week because I have my coffee. And I'm thinking about somebody else who was a graphic designer, Tom Peterson, the bass player of Cheap Trick, was a graphic designer as well. And he designed their logo and a lot of their merch. And they were famous for merch back in the mid 70s. So much so that Cream magazine did a feature on how a family of three had completely outfitted themselves from shoes to hat to baby carriage in Cheap Trick merchandise.
Excellent. Wow. There you go. It's funny because although I bought merch from the very first show I ever went to, age 12 years old, unbelievably, I managed to buy a t-shirt at that show and I still have it as well. I do also come from a slightly punk rock background. I remember one of my favorite bands of all time, Fugazi, who I saw on a few occasions. They refused to sell merch. They didn't, and they kept their ticket prices as low as possible. It was almost like they didn't want to make any money, but they did because they became hugely successful. But I mean, obviously, there is that sort of the idea of selling a load of old rubbish to make some money when what we're trying to talk about, perhaps more in this panel and this discussion, is how you make really good merch and sustainable merch. What kind of stuff do you personally, as John Maxwell Hobbs, what are you looking at as the kind of merch that you would have made or do have made at the moment?
I think it really has to tie into who you are as an artist. And that's what's so wonderful about this. We seriously drank lots and lots of coffee on the road. Absolute coffee freaks. And these are all, petrol pumps. So it's a description of what fueled the band. So
do you believe in
really connected?
Do you believe in that sort of, you mentioned sort of authenticity? Is it right for a certain artist, a certain act to go down a particular route in terms of the merch that they have made? You wouldn't, as if you're a serious kind of artist and introspective songwriter or whatever, you don't necessarily want to have, I don't know, sparkly underpants on the merch store.
No, I don't think you just want to go on and sort of stick your logo here, on one of these sites that allows you to churn out really cheap merch. It really has to be something that means something to you, and because then it will mean something to your audience as well.
Well, that brings me to Tertia. You're an expert on this with Terrible. What's available out there? Because I mean, the vast majority of gigs are t-shirts and tote bags, and I could probably build a mountain out of tote bags. I've got so many, but you can tell us about what else is out there.
Yeah, I mean, First of all, we should never be buying any more tote bags. You have to use one 300 times if you actually want to make it like worth your investment. And I guarantee you probably have 300 tote bags you've used once rather than the other way around. But yeah, the products, we make products that are relevant to the artist and to the audience. So something that will form like a relationship between the two. Every artist is different. Some artists can sell tons of mugs and can't sell any t-shirts. We've made all kinds of things. We made money for Heady One. He has a lyric that says his head's shaped like a 50p coin. So we made him 50p coins, which he sold for £10. We've just made some little resin bobbleheads that are a little more sustainable rather than plastic ones for Danny L. Hall. We've done also figurines for that, you know, like properly come in cardboard boxes like you would back in the day as well, of whole bands together. We do knitted scarves, which we knit up north in England, which is pretty cool. Hats as well. Socks, like we knit those up north as well. Socks are a big one for the 6 music dads because they don't necessarily, they can't wear their t-shirts to work, but they, you know, they can wear their Black Country New Road socks to the office when they go back.
Socks are big with the 6 music dads. That is hilarious.
I could tell you all about the 6 music dad dissection of like clientele. They're amazing. They spend a lot of money, and they're, you know, they love high quality products. So for instance, you know, there's a younger fans as well. So some artists, their fans are really concerned with like where a product came from, its sustainability, that kind of thing. Sometimes it's not always just about the kind of product, but how it's made as well. So the Gen Z is way more demanding as well. So you've got to like, you really have to like be creative. But yeah, we make everything. We've made jewelry, we've made mugs, we've made t-shirts. Really, the world is your oyster. We like to do things that connect with fans, and that really isn't always a t-shirt. I think maybe if it's guitar music, or maybe if you're rap or grime, it could be a t-shirt, but most of the time there's a bunch of other things that will connect with your audience like far, far better, and you'll sell far more. There's another rule about scarcity as well, making things that, you know, are unique and not a lot of them, that kind of helps sales along. But if you're going to make t-shirts, don't make a lot in weird colors because they won't sell.
Right, yeah, I've learned that mistake. Probably, I think it was my first band out of school, so we're talking in the 90s, and we had 4 different colors and then 3 different colors of the long sleeved ones, and yeah, we were always left with the light blue and the purple ones. All the black and white ones went straight away.
Who looks good in a purple t-shirt?
Yeah, right.
Like,
although I was wearing a purple t-shirt the other day, so I apologize for that.
Maybe you look good in a purple t-shirt. Maybe that's why you made them.
Nah, I don't think so. You're probably right. Now, what I'm interested in is knowing that there are all these products out there. How do you sort of align one artist? How do you find out that one artist sells mugs and another artist sells t-shirts? Because I mean, my band have just put out a record. We'd quite like to get some merch done to obviously make us a bit of money and so on. Are we a t-shirt band? Are we a mug band? Are we a figurine band? Probably not. You know, how do you work that out?
Well, it's your budget and it's the audience data. You know, we know what bands sell what in what genre in what territories. Like we have that because we kind of manage the entire process from sourcing to selling. So we understand that you can sell yellow t-shirts in Berlin, but you really struggle to do that in London. So there's things that you pick out within genres. It means that new artists to merchandise can look at similar bands and similar positioning and see if they have similar fans. I mean, you have a lot of data coming from everywhere. You can do that even without Terrible. And you know, I think John hit the nail on the head saying that like you got to make a product you love. You can't sell anything you don't love. So making something you love is the easiest way to like connect with your fans. But there's also a right moment to make merchandise, and it isn't necessarily right out the gate. You need to be able to sell 50 of something straight away. I think if you're making things before then, there is no real demand for you, and you're going to lose money, which is going to put your business on the back foot. So that, you know, there's a moment, and I think if you've got 50 fans that are going to put, like, if you have 50 people that will buy something from you, you'll know what they want. You'll know what will resonate with them because you're already quite connected to them emotionally and financially. You know, that relationship has begun.
That's really great advice, actually, because a lot of artists do just kind of launch themselves and have a massive merch table with 10 different products on there, and they're probably not selling many of any of them. What about, we're hopefully getting back to live gigs and festivals and everything again, but while people are still, and maybe for the foreseeable future, live streaming, what's a good way of being able to sell merchandise through that? I'm sure you've had to adapt to that.
Yeah, I mean, so for live streaming, I feel that a great way to be considerate and kind of make something special for live streaming is doing something via pre-order. And you could sell your old merchandise that hasn't sold before. You could possibly reprint on it as well to kind of make it new again. But for us, how we handled live streaming over the pandemic was we ran pre-orders on things. So we were, we'd have an artist that was, sorry, my dog is like, if you can hear her, she's like digging in her bed. I'm so sorry.
I have a dog too, who she may burst into the room at some point. I've also got seagulls out that side, so if you hear some really mad squawking, I apologize.
It's good for our souls, but she's out there. If you hear the scratching, it's not me being weird, it's my dog like settling in for the night. Where was I? We were talking about the kind of products or the moment to make merchandise.
Well, just stuff that goes alongside streaming, the way you adapted to. Yeah,
live streaming. So we decided, we did pre-orders for that. So we would a live stream would happen. We'd put a product up for a limited amount of time that people could order it in. So they'd have 24 hours from the stream, or as long as the stream was being shown, that they could order this product. That way we'd make the exact amount to meet the exact demand. And people were really patient about waiting for that. The supply chain over COVID was really slow and messed up. We have a very, very dynamic supply chain. So we were able to produce things quickly without having to do it ahead of time anyway. And it really helped to place pre-orders and make things to order specifically for a show. The things that were selling really well were, this is ridiculous, tea towels, because everyone was at home. That was like a big seller, which is like one of my worst products. I'm like, I think we can do better. T-shirts sold really well, and loungewear, we sold tons of like tracksuit bottoms, loads of those, especially in the first part of lockdown. Scarves we sold a lot of, which I guess because everyone was out walking as well and it was a bit chilly, like at certain points over Christmas, but they also make great gifts. Sweatshirts as well. I mean, loungewear was huge. Like we were like, last year we like everyone was dressed head to toe in like band tracksuits. I'm like convinced of it. And taking their hot trays out the oven with their tea towels.
That is bizarre. I do actually have a couple of band tea towels, but I thought they were the only ones in existence, but they obviously aren't. Just before I move on, Tertia, who do you think has had the best merchandise strategy that you've ever seen? I mean, perhaps alongside yourself, so, maybe you help them with it, or perhaps it's someone else.
Let me tell you my dream merch people. Golf Wang, Tyler the Creator, those guys had the best merch strategy ever. They created brands out of their business. Same thing with Daft Punk. Daft Punk never compromised on making incredible products that really connected with their fans, offering a diverse range, keeping it unique, even making the posters that they were advertising merchandise with as posters, so as merchandise, which is really good. Posters also sold really well during the pandemic and for live streaming, by the way.
Right.
Good. Anything that was like related to do with the home. But yeah, I think Daft Punk and like Golf Wang for the Odd Future guys, those are two really great merch games. Other ones are like my favorite stories are the ones where we work with the band from the very beginning and we develop an entire range. My favorite one that we've done that for is Black Country New Road. They change and evolve so often as well. It's always a new fresh kind of idea that comes out of it, which is really exciting. And they've got the 6 music dads, so they've got the best merchandise audience out there. And I love the 6 music dads. I don't want anyone to think that I love them. They're my favorite customer segment. So I'm not like playing them down. I think they're amazing. Well,
this is the thing. I suppose, you assume that with with popular music, you know, alternative music, whatever, that lots and lots of young people will be getting into it. And it's young people that drive the momentum, the fan base and so on. But actually, we're now living with people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s who are still into rock and roll, and they're still buying records, and they've probably got more loose cash.
More money.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and even if they don't, they're the ones paying for their kids to buy merchandise for artists anyway. So you want to make products that they appreciate, because if it's going to be in their house or it's going to be with their money, they're going to want it to be good. I think you know, if you can buy your kids merchandise as well and it's great quality and you don't have to buy them other clothes, you know, you're happy about that. You're giving them, it's like two birds with one stone. Yeah.
Fiona, I hope some of this rings true with you. As someone that's designed merch, what kind of stuff have you made over the last few years?
Mainly, so like the bare minimum, which is like essentials, like t-shirts, sweatshirts. I've tried to design tracksuits, but I want it done in a very specific way, but I just don't have that side of resources in terms of like getting a supplier and like getting everything done, because they all have minimum order quantities.
Well, maybe you and Tertia should discuss things after this panel.
I was gonna be like, I'm gonna DM her, pick your brains. But lately, our most recent drop, we did like hats. So most of our fan base, surprisingly, they're all Americans. So there's a lot of there's different ways of like how Americans like to buy merch compared to like the UK people. I feel like our UK fan base, or just how I've noticed, they're not really like, they would turn up at gigs, but merch is not really like the number one thing to go for. But Americans, I literally we get a lot of messages just asking for scarves, for socks, for lighters, because a lot of our fan base is based in Denver, because that's like our second home for a venue. And because weed is legal there, so they're always asking for like grinders and lighters, anything that's kind of like weed paraphernalia.
I just want to say, on behalf of the ISM Trust and Delic, we do not condone the use of drugs of any kind. Just want to say that it's a family show, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, continue, Fiona.
Sorry. But yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, how big an order would you make of, I mean, you're you know, an emerging brand, you're an emerging label, you're underground, you're alternative. How many hats are you getting made at a time? How many t-shirts? 50, 100, 200, 1,000? What sort of numbers are we talking?
So that's the thing. Ever since we started up, we've only used platforms that are print on demand. So our very first one that we tried was DZ Jam. I think they're based in London, or like just UK. And then we moved on because there was just lack of products, and then just the quality wasn't that good. We've got like a couple of shirts that were just misprinted a lot, and then that's the thing with like print on demand. We can't exactly see what our customers are getting. We only get like the first sample piece. We moved on to design by humans, and then now we're currently with Printful, after me looking at T-Mail and Printify, because I think Printful, for us, we want to use sustainable clothing or like recycled products. Those are my favorites. Like that's my go-to thing. So
and
I have never.
And like Tertia was talking about pre-orders, do you do that sort of thing as well?
Yeah.
Because that seems like a great idea. It's like find out how many people want before you actually make them.
Yeah, that's literally like our next step. So because now we're getting a lot of requests for certain things, that we're just gonna do like bare essentials that are like print on demand, and then we're gonna do we're planning to do pre-orders for like a US release, for like a very like a limited edition just for the US people, and then I have a supplier just ready to help us with those orders, and then another one for the UK. And I feel like jumping on Tertia's thing about like the timings of like your products and stuff, and because we're quite active on Facebook and Instagram, so we run polls like once in a while and asking people what they want to see. Sometimes they want very specific designs of like some of the album covers that we have on our roster to be printed on something. Everyone wants different things. So polls are a great thing before you do a pre-order as well.
Okay. And I see you drinking out of a water bottle. That wouldn't be product placement there, would it? Be one of your
It just so happened
stickers.
that this is the Slug Wife sticker that I designed.
Yeah, I thought it might be. Well done. But in terms of you know, sort of paper products or stickers, that kind of stuff, which is notoriously sort of non-environmentally friendly,
Yeah.
how do you find the right companies there that you know are kind of perhaps reinvesting in sustainability and forestry and so on?
I try to print with local printers, so not like any random ones I find on the internet. So and as much as possible, just to make sure that the company itself is eco.
Yeah.
I think that's just research. It's just a lot of research. It's like, if you really like, I feel like if anyone wants to, like, if you have a thing in mind to make sure that whatever you're doing, you're doing like with as little carbon footprint as possible, that you just have to do a lot of reading, especially a lot of the small print. For some companies, it's just easy for them to be like, we're eco, but then you have to go check their little terms, the policy bit.
Yeah,
it's always just hidden at the corner. It's really difficult to find sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that brings me to Kellie. Kellie, you're a sort of expert on, you know, sustainable fashion and finding the right kind of textiles and fabrics and so on. Where should people be looking if they're looking to get? I mean, a lot of people are thinking, I just need 50 t-shirts. I don't, you know, it's not going to cost a huge amount, but there's the right companies to go to, the right places to go to, and obviously the wrong. So point us in that sort of direction, if you could.
I think one of the best places to start, just picking up on what Fiona just said about education. That's a really important point. So I think if I was starting out to make merch, I'd take a step back first. And I think it's about realizing your kind of responsibility as someone who's entering into a product manufacturing industry, because you're now stepping into the whole other industry. So if, you know, the musical and that involves people in different countries, people in factories, people in dye houses, people in cotton fields, people in forests, you know, all of these other people that even if, I mean, when you're making 50 pieces, it can feel overwhelming that you have a degree of responsibility for all of these kind of people along the way. But I think it's quite easy to make merch now, and it's offered to us in so many different forms that if you don't kind of understand the system that you're stepping into, that's when you start to come across all of these small print and extra issues. And, you know, it's not just about carbon footprint or living wages, it's about all of these things, and we're not all going to be able to solve them as musicians, but I think that education piece before you step into merch is super, super important. And I mean, all of us working in sustainability are getting educated on a weekly basis. It's moving so fast that you can't possibly know everything, but I do think it's really important when you're looking at merch companies to check out the environmental side, but also really importantly the people side. So, you know, the countries that your products are coming from, and not just where they're manufactured, you know, if it's a cotton t-shirt, where that's coming from. Can the company tell you if people are being paid a living wage? Can the company tell you the conditions of the people in those supply chains? Because it's just such a massive knock-on effect, you know, and I think lots of us, particularly in the music industry, we'd like to champion and support different causes, charity causes and different social causes, but actually there's a huge knock-on effect within the fashion and clothing space of all of these different issues down supply chain. So women's issues are huge in the fashion industry and clothing. So you'll get this like thought around 75 million people working in clothing supply chains. Most of them are women between the age of 18 to 35 who are living in poverty conditions with lots of exploitation. And yeah, clothing in the fashion industry props that up hugely by churning out product at such a fast rate. That's not to say we shouldn't make products, but to Tertia's point, it's just checking out the type of products that you are making and checking out all those conditions. So I don't want to call out one kind of particular company over another, but just to make it super accessible for everyone. I think it's just to give yourself a really basic education first. And then you start to be able to pick out, oh, that's what that company is saying is good, or these guys are just talking about the environment, but they're not talking about the social side. Why is that? Let me ask them a few questions about that one. And I mean, there's a bunch of free courses online that we'd be happy to share afterwards. covering the basics of, if you're getting into the clothing industry, what you should be looking out for. Fashion Revolution is one, Fashion Values is another if people want to look it up. But yeah, I do that first. And then if you see merch companies, you kind of become a bit of an expert yourself and start to research properly over time.
And what about waste? Because I mean, Tertia was talking about recycling old merch, but not everyone's going to be able to do that. Or perhaps the band or the project breaks up and you've suddenly got a spare room full of bits of vinyl and t-shirts and stickers and this, that, and the next thing. I mean, that's got to be a consideration as well. Are there places that will recycle merch?
So again, so I always go to big macro issues first, but like I mean, the fashion industry alone, it's thought by 2030, there's going to be the equivalent of 500 billion t-shirts produced annually. And at the moment, there's no large scale solution to deal with those products when they become waste. That's only 8.5 years away. So that's a huge amount of products. What is happening, I mean, people will have heard lots of chat about circularity, and the kind of most perfect circularity is that your product, no matter what it is, whether it's a t-shirt or a mug or whatever, can be broken down and turned back into an equivalent product. Now there's loads going on in the background to try and make that technology scalable so that all products everywhere, this will be an economy that we'll have down the line eventually. But for right now, what we have is in front of us. And it's what, Tertia and Fiona both said, make what is relevant for you. Don't make in massive volumes. Try and predict the amounts that you make with polls and stuff like that. So you can do the bit up front is quality and your own volumes. But then when it comes to kind of recycling, it's just about being a bit smart about it as well. Can you do a collaboration with someone and turn it into something else? Can you resell stock, like Tertia mentions as well? And provide information to your fans about what you can do with them afterwards. There's loads of different websites like Love and Not Landfill. They give information about it. The Clothes Doctor is another one. They're mostly UK based, but they give information about how to wear and care for your clothes and where to recycle. But in terms of like ultimate large scale recycling, proper recycling, it doesn't really exist at the moment. You can like have things that can be downcycled, t-shirts can be shredded into rags and used for stuffing and mattresses and all these kind of industry things. I think if you're working in small volumes, I would never tell people not to worry about waste, but ultimately down the line, the issues with the clothing industry, it's just going to be regulated. There's going to be extended producer responsibility regulation that's going to come in. It's actually being looked at next year by the government. That's just going to come in and just like clean the boards, and there'll either be fashion taxes on product or some sort of investment into recycling infrastructure. So not that I don't want to freak everyone out too much about waste, but it's definitely from the big scale right down to the smaller things that you can do. But starting off with your volume and your quality are the two things straight away to kind of be responsible for the flow of product that you're putting out there, and not be, especially when products come to you cheap, not to kind of go, oh, just do 100 of this and 100 of that, because it is only a 5. If it is those kind of price points and those volumes, you need to be asking questions about why it actually is that cheap in the first place.
Yeah.
That's been my
So go on.
that's been my constant dilemma, because there is cheap clothing, and then that can give us, like, for some people it could give them like a higher profit margin. But I, for example, my thing is to look for sustainable stuff, but also high quality stuff, like Tertia said. But if you have high quality stuff, which means that your merch is more expensive. But then that also means that if you're paying more for it, it will last longer. So that could be less merch. It could be just something that people can wear for so much longer, or use for much longer.
There's also the thing about actually the kind of products you use. I think Diet Prada did a thing the other day with what polyester does to clothes, and polyester in clothes is completely unbiodegradable, whereas cotton eventually does just disappear. So there's things about removing plastic from your supply chain is a very simple thing to do. It's more expensive, and you do risk like a little loss with your fulfillment and that kind of thing. But removing plastic is a big move that could save a lot of things, because it's not actually just what's in the items you're making, it's how they're packaged and how they're shipped. And like it's the whole supply chain. I think Kellie said it comes from everything, from the type of ink used as well. If you use a certain kind of ink on a certain kind of t-shirt, it's not recyclable, and it never will be. If you overstock, you probably aren't going to sell 100 of anything, or you're not going to predict the sizes accurately. You'll probably sell like 30% and be left with that. So actually, if you only bought 30 or 33 of that, you'd make more money if you didn't make the rest, even if you charged a higher thing. Overstocking is like, it's just such a simple thing to solve it right at the beginning, like make what will meet demand. And we have data. We have the data for it. We can do it.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense, and it's just not a waste of money. Chiara, coming to you, because you are the absolute expert on sustainability and what people can do, what the music industry can do at large, but also what personal musicians or managers or labels or kind of collectives can do. Tell us a bit about, while we're on this subject now, what people can do.
And I think I want to go back a bit to that point on authenticity as well that we started off on, which just linking that into that is sort of your merchandise is an extension of what you stand for as an artist. And I think if you are an artist and you care about climate and the environment, which hopefully most of us do, I think your first step is just having that conversation with everyone around you and who works with you, whether it's your management company, your label, anyone else, to just bring it up and to make sure it's in everyone else's mind as well when they're making decisions with you or on your behalf, that this is an issue that you want considered, and you sort of give permission to other people to ask those questions for you as well. I think that second piece that Kellie also brought up, sort of, educate yourself. There is so much information out there on the Julie's Bicycle website, on the Music Declares Emergency website, on you can sort of go down rabbit holes onto specialist subjects. But it's sort of taking that responsibility for what you're bringing into this world and for that piece of your career. And so I think those would be the first two things to start off with. I think you're never going to be perfect. Like, this is a process. We're all learning every day. And so having that conversation, keeping up to date. Don't always beat yourself up, because chances are sometimes you might not get everything right. But the important thing is to learn from that, to share with other people why it's not right, and to move on. And I think, particularly if you're looking for new partnerships, again, asking those questions of different companies, like, what are you doing on environment? What is your environmental policy? Are you investing in renewable energy? What are your labor practices? Who are the partners that you work with? And kind of also looking for positive partnerships. So the types of merch that also excite me is like new collaborations with maybe B Corps or cooperatives or social enterprises. I think it was Lucy Rose who did a collaboration with a company called Rubies in the Rubble, who sort of work with women from disadvantaged backgrounds to divert food waste to make jams. And so she brought out a line of Lucy Rose jams, which I thought was brilliant, because you have that really positive sort of alignment, again, that speaks to who the artist is. And then lastly, because we're working in this system where our economic system at the moment is not working in the context of our planetary sort of support systems. We're going through more than 2 planets worth of resources every year. So that is an immovable reality. And I think to shift that, we are going to need some of that big picture and policy change. And I think that is the opportunity as artists as well, is kind of, you do the right thing and as much as you can, but also raise your voice and sort of lend your support to campaigns, speak out, so that we have that through line and actually start shifting the world around us too.
Well, all brilliant stuff there. Thank you very much, Chiara. Just, but we're going to go to the questions. People have been watching, putting little points and questions in the Q&A and chat box. Going to go to those in a minute, but I'm just fascinated, I'm sure lots of you are out there, with digital merch, with NFTs. At the end of the last session, I was trying to remember which 3 letters they were, of course. It's non-fungible token or something, right? Does anyone know about the kind, if people don't actually want to make physical t-shirts, posters, hats, mugs, stickers, etc., and they're spending more and more time online, what's a good way of making digital merch? Maybe Tertia, maybe you know about this, and also Chiara, Kellie, anyone, just chip in for this.
We've made screensavers and things like that plenty. There's lots of digital merch you can make, even just limited edition like photos and that kind of thing. NFTs in particular are a tough call because it's actually quite expensive to buy an NFT. You need to buy the currency. You need to go on a platform that may not be there next week. You need to buy it. And those things never normally match. And then there's all these things that are attached to it. And maybe the platform won't be there. It's not terribly accessible to the everyday fan yet. It's definitely at a higher level. The thing we're striving for is for that to become as easy as it is to buy a t-shirt, where we all have crypto wallets, where we can all be involved in it without like all these steps. I'm sure you guys probably saw like the big furore around Kings of Leon's fans, sorry to even bring them up, but their fans like not being able to, like, getting really upset with like the whole process of buying NFTs because it's just a little bit out of like the everyday grasp, and it makes it exclusive, which I don't think music is ever intended to do that. The other thing is the costs and everything of NFTs is, you know, partly parallel to that of merchandise anyway. So it's the same kind of business, but there's definitely ways to get creative, numbering things, making digital items. Cameo has proved that doing customized and bespoke videos is actually something that fans want.
Yeah.
You know, there are lots of ways, and every artist will have a way that they can connect with their fans. It's a little different. I think the most important thing about it is making something that you know, has a good business model to it, where the margin works for you. So your time is accounted for when you're making these things, which is applicable the same way to the NFTs. The time and resources are accounted for properly. But yeah, making things that there's lots of creative ways to do things. Like, you know, we've seen insane stuff happen in the pandemic, but yeah, at a base level, you know, songbooks as well. Like the one thing we had someone do was like downloadable PDFs of like their lyric books, but also like the kind of like actual notated music of that, which is a bit of a joke, but actually they sold 100 of them. So
yeah. Kellie, Chiara, do you have anything to add to this as well?
I mean, I think with a lot of digital merchandise or sort of digital exchange, there's a lot of misinformation that grows sort of in the lack of transparency that sort of underpins our whole digital infrastructure. So I think it can be a bit tricky to find your way through the headlines of like, digital is the worst thing that's ever happened to the climate, all the way to, you know, it's a good thing. I think quite often, yeah, the impact of digital things like streaming has been hugely overstated from an environmental point of view. That's starting to come out much more. So like a couple of hours of streaming, video streaming, are probably the equivalent of driving a few hundred meters in a car. But that doesn't mean there is no impact at all. And so kind of being conscious, and if you are talking to fans, things like hanging on to laptops or electronic devices for longer, for example, because that's the waste of the supply chain. I think NFTs are a bit of a different story within that, because a lot of cryptocurrency at the moment is built on a thing called proof of work, which is hugely energy intensive, and is starting to distort actually energy markets. So certain fossil fuel plants being kept open to divert energy to mine more cryptocurrency. There are different sort of cryptocurrency systems coming online a little bit, but the most widespread ones are still super energy intensive. So I think that's just something to be aware of if we are talking about that market. That is quite technical. If anyone wants to talk about that more, I can share some info.
I'm sure you could go down many wormholes with that.
And I want to jump in a little bit on the NFT thing as well.
Yeah, go for it.
You know, as with any technology, you know, novelty gets a focus. You know, in 1900, you could go to a spa to get electric shocks for your health because it was the new thing. The focus on NFTs, and we are at Delic, we are doing research into a sensible way of using NFTs and associating it with music. I mean, part of it now, it's got the whole get rich quick scheme. It's also the music isn't the focus. It's all of a sudden you have to be a visual artist. Oh, and there's music. So that moves people out. And the main thing about constantly focusing on NFTs is, you know, it's confusing the tray for the meal. The meal is still music, and we need to focus on that. So NFTs will be used, and they've actually been used for quite a while. There are gaming platforms, exchange platforms that people are using NFTs without even knowing that they're NFTs. It's just a methodology.
Yeah.
But it is an interesting sort of thing about offering bragging rights to something, saying, oh yeah, this is mine. Comes very
I'm
much
the
from
only person that owns this. There is only one and it's mine.
yeah, comes very much from the visual arts world, where something becomes more valuable the fewer people that have access to it. Now in
Yeah.
music, it's the other way around. A song that has only one person listening to it has no value whatsoever. It gains more value by the more people who can access it. So we're looking at other ways of using something like NFTs to support things like pre-sales or fans funding, fans becoming the advanced system that the labels aren't doing for indie artists now, things like that. So that through a Delic NFT, you could make an investment in an album that will be released. So
Yeah.
you've got a bit of bragging rights, but you're also not playing dog in the manger with it as well.
Yeah, fair enough. I think we should get to some of these questions because I can see we're definitely running out of time. We might go slightly over 7 o'clock, but we don't want to go too late. So I'm going to start with some of these. Jolene Potts has been in touch a couple of times saying, firstly, would you say that merch is more important today because streaming exploits artists so much?
I think it's nice. Let's not sell streaming down the river.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way: is that streaming has made the value of content very confusing. It's made it seem like it's worth much less. So although tech giants, it feels like they've raided arts and culture. What they've done is they've made it rentable. Basically, so you're only renting music, which makes it seem less valuable. So it's done some damage in that sense, but as a fan, the value that you feel towards music or an artist can be expressed with how much money you spend on that, whether it's a ticket, whether it's you buying their physical music, or whether it's you buying a physical product, or whether it's you signing up to Patreon and supporting them that way. All those things reassign value to the content created.
So if you're streaming someone, you love their music, you love their art, feel free to keep it going round and round and round on Spotify or whoever you use, but go and buy a t-shirt or a piece of vinyl or subscribe to their Patreon, whatever it is. So
make an investment.
Yeah.
50% of people who buy vinyl don't own a turntable.
Right.
And we live in a capitalist system, and it's a way of someone to express that this music has value to them.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your question, Jolene. We'll move on to Christina Brilliance, who says, do you think making and selling merchandise during seasonal periods like the holidays and summers probably could be more effective time to get the most revenue? I think that's quite a good question. Summer
isn't a great time for merchandise, but Christmas, January, February, March, like that little section of the year from November to March, that winter, that's an amazing time to make and sell merchandise. Because people are gifting things, and what better to gift someone something that an artist they love made, or some Daft Punk, like, baubles for your tree, or just, there's lots of cool things. Summer merchandise sells less because people are spending a lot of money at festivals and tickets.
Okay,
except
that's useful.
in COVID.
Fiona, you were going to jump in there as well. Go for it.
Just more of like seasonally themed kind of merch. So like even like Tertia makes a point that like not more people are like spending money on like gigs and festivals during the summer, but the Americans do want a lot of tank tops, a lot of crop tops, shorts, even swimwear.
Okay.
Asked once, yes.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a niche market, isn't it? I mean, that really has to depend on the artist, I think. John, are you looking to sell swimwear associated to your music?
No, although I'm thinking sort of Victorian style swimwear.
That could be cool, yeah.
You could do some Victorian style boxer shorts. That would be a hit, because those could be like genderless and go a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You could do there's lots of places to go there, John.
Well, Christina, I hope that was useful. And now we go to Ariane Ashuri, who says, from your collective experience, what is the most hassle-free, oh, that's just disappeared from my screen. What is the most hassle-free method of selling merchandise from the UK to the globe, whilst also keeping international taxation, sustainability, and economy of scale in mind? That's a huge question. Chiara, you might be able to comment on that one.
To be honest, I don't have any specific recommendations. I think if Tertia wants to come in, or even Kellie on it, to me, I would say, again, in terms of working with any sort of e-merchandising partner, it's asking those questions, which is, what are your own policies? You know, what kind of delivery partners do you work with? In terms of delivery timelines, wherever possible, is it possible to prioritize shipping over air freighting anything? And also, what's the policy on the amount of packaging that is freighted with the stuff?
Yeah.
I think for us, make local, ship local. Print on demand will lose you a lot of revenue, so it's more something for testing the market. But also, the products that you can sell in the US or in Japan aren't necessarily the same products you can sell in the UK. So making local and shipping local really helps. I will say certain things like actually sometimes it's more cost effective and quicker and less tax. Like less taxes paid if you're shipping from the UK to Canada. So experience in terms of third-party logistics and someone who has that kind of experience for online is really important. Again, if you're on tour or you're doing things a little differently, managing things locally is really important. That's kind of the basis of how we do things, because delivering products for the right audiences and the right kind of materials is really important. But also, you know, there are like you can like shorten the bridge on like how many airplanes are flying things over, you know, or tax wise locally that works. But I think in the US, it's like every state has a different tax. So even if you're shipping from one state to another, you're still dealing with like a tax issue anyway. But as far as customs,
wondering, for example, say Fiona's, you know, Slug wife have got a big following in Denver. Would it be worth trying to find a local manufacturer in Denver to make the stuff? And sort of, is that what you do, Fiona?
Yeah, that's what we are kind of like going towards. So like doing polls, like at the end of the year, probably like actually in October, just to prepare for Christmas, just to do like a Christmas drop, just to ask people what they want, and then actually like talk to local suppliers and then have them do the fulfillment by actually someone that we trust. Again, it's a lot of research, making sure that they have the right products, the products that I want, that we want, and make sure that our fans will be happy with them as well, and that they last.
And I don't want to get into it too deeply, but is Brexit affecting merch sales around Europe? Obviously,
not sales, just delivery times. That's the biggest impact, I think. Right. The last thing that came in was the IOSS thing, which you can do your research on. That's the biggest nightmare. But actually, a third-party logistics supplier and that kind of thing, whoever's shipping it, like the last person, like the person, the warehouse that ships, that takes the payment, they can be responsible for those kind of things. And it's just important, like with everything with merchandise, is ensuring that these extra costs and things are factored into your margins. This becomes part of your cost of goods. So that's how you manage that. But equally, manufacture in Europe.
Okay. Moving on to anonymous attendee, who, if it's the same anonymous attendee, has asked 3 questions, but we'll go for the first one. When does a band cross over from self-merchandising to licensing? I think that's quite a good question, because, you know, you might build up a huge fan base and you're still kind of phoning up and getting 500 t-shirts made or 1,000 t-shirts. When do you get cross over to licensing?
I think it depends when whoever owns the rights to your logo decides that. It's normally, if you're just licensing it out, that's normally a sale of an entire estate. When you kind of professionalize instead of doing it yourself is a moment of when you have to. When it becomes too much for you to fulfill on your own, you move, you grow. When the cost becomes greater for you to do it, or for someone else, like it becomes more cost effective at volume for someone else to do it, that's when you move. Every stage has a has a moment, and you usually know because you can't handle it when it gets to that moment.
Yeah, okay. Another one here from anonymous attendee. Quality was the worst thing about band t-shirts I used to buy as a kid. 2 cycles in the washing machine of a Fruit of the Loom shirt and it would look 20 years old. Has that changed?
Very much so.
Yep. Fans demand it. Like, no one
Yeah.
wants a shitty, like the poor quality t-shirt. No one's into it. If you wash your t-shirt twice and it doesn't come out exactly like it did in the first wash, your fan's going to email you now. Like, you have to, it needs to last 10 years. And also for the planet, like, just, it's a t-shirt, like, come on.
Yeah, yeah. And can sweatpants ever be sustainable?
If they're 100%
Kellie,
cotton.
maybe you can chip in on that one. Can you know, lounging pants ever be sustainable?
I'm going to say something slightly controversial in that I don't think any product can ever be sustainable, even that word sustainable. I mean, as soon as you start to make something in this extractive economy, you know, Chiara was talking about earlier on, the word sustainable is nothing. When I started out, it used to be your materials, your manufacturing, but now we're looking at absolutely everything. So I'll set that aside. But if you want to make a better form of sweatpants, yeah, sure. I mean, like Tertia mentioned, you know, have a look at the label on the inside, or, you know, of the product description and see what it's made of. If it's 100% cotton, if it's 100% organic cotton, great. If it's 100% cotton, slightly better. If it's mixed with polyester, not great, can't be recycled, and it's also plastic, and there's all these kind of knock-on effects. So I think as well, educating yourself a little bit about the types of materials is one, but then also what you're looking at is how it's dyed, how it's processed. You know, if you've got a pair of sweatpants that have a big PVC logo on them, that's no good. I mean, it's a really tricky one because you kind of end up having to educate yourself about a lot to do with an industry when you just want to pick up a product when you get into sustainability. But actually, in some ways, it's kind of empowering. It can be cool to just go on this learning journey and learn a little bit more. So I know it was a really basic question about sustainable sweatpants, but it's not a straightforward thing.
It's not a basic answer. Okay. I think we can do 2 more questions, and then we're kind of out of time, I think. I'm sorry if we've not got to absolutely every comment or question, but how about this one from Nigel Carling? He says, I'm looking to incorporate a merchandise shop in my new band focused music streaming app, which will launch in the UK, Europe, and North Africa in early 2022. We want to be carbon neutral from the outset. How can I achieve this with potential merchandise sales in this vast region? Who wants to go with that one?
I don't think it can be carbon neutral. The sale of a product, I think, Kellie, you've said it, like the sale of a product is not carbon neutral. It would, I mean, I wouldn't promise that. I think you can aim for that, but I would never promise it.
Yeah, like I mean, the best you can do is just go local, like what Tertia said.
I mean, just to jump slightly there, the idea, and I mean, Chiara, you'll know way more about this than me, but is to keep things as low impact as possible. So reduce your emissions and make sure everything is efficient within your whole supply chain. And then you get into, if you absolutely have to offset emissions, then go down the offsetting route. But I would not start out by going, I want to be carbon neutral, because straight away you're jumping into offsetting, which is just nothing. It's planting trees or mangroves or whatever in random places. Chiara, I'll let you pick up there because I know you know way more about this than me. But
yeah, I mean, I think again, it's sort of maybe controversial or not. I hate the term carbon neutral, because actually it trades on this idea that we can market and exchange a ton for carbon here for a ton of carbon somewhere else, and a lot of the time that just isn't true. I think if you want to create something that is really ethical, then it really is thinking about what you're going to invest into on this route to reducing emissions that we have now. And so that does mean, again, looking at your supply chain partners. If carbon emissions are a big focus, again, looking at, are the factories renewably powered? What is the plan for things like energy efficiency? But crucially also making positive investments. So can you make positive investments in climate justice instead, in workers' rights, in sort of, you know, even protecting, say, Indigenous rights and land rights and so on and so forth? For example, Indigenous populations around the world tend to actually take much better care of the forests than a lot of the monoculture offset forests that we've planted, trying to make things carbon neutral. So it's not always about buying the offset credits. It can also be about putting your money elsewhere.
Okay. Okay. Never an easy answer, these ones.
And I
One
wanna
final
just-
question, I think, and then we'll have to say goodbye. Kenisha M has been in touch saying, as an authentic independent singer, songwriter, solo artist, I want to make merchandise that is not like everyone else, but connects to my music. Is it best to have merchandise that is different from others? And do you think it's harder to sell merchandise as a solo artist than a band? We've kind of discussed, you know, merchandise being, you know, particular to your music, but if everyone's doing t-shirts and mugs and hats and, you know, socks, should Kenisha be doing that as well, or what's your opinion, Tertia?
I think you need to make a product that your fans will love, that you love. I think John has said it, like, you've got to make something authentic, and that authenticity is making something that you love. And if you love it, your fans will love it. That there's a relationship that we had. Yeah, like maybe your fans, we've got an artist that literally cannot sell t-shirts, but they can sell 200 mugs in an hour. Like, there's just something that will connect with your audience, and you normally know what it is, because if they're listening to your music, you already have a connection with them. You kind of have like this little gateway into their world if they're your fan, and that's a really special moment to capitalize on and actually cement the relationship. You know, once a fan invests in you, that relationship becomes real. They've made an investment. They'll keep coming back for you, but they're listening already. So there's, you know, you got them. You just have to give them, you have to kind of just expand a little more on that. I think as a solo artist, it's probably much easier than dealing with like the vote of 3 other people to get a product over the line.
I feel like we can.
Sorry, Fiona, go for it.
I feel like if it's your first merch, you can think about that one merch that you would love to have with either with your name on it or like your logo on it, but that one piece, and then make that, and then just see how it goes, and then just have feedback with your fan base, and then just ask them, what else do you want to see? Because maybe you want earrings, you know, like even jewelry. Other people like keychains and necklaces. Yeah.
And do solo artists and bands sell different amounts? I mean, is there any difference, or?
I think probably like some solo artists like Kanye probably sells more merch, like $27 million of merchandise on a tour. He's considered a solo artist, so I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing Metallica probably doesn't do that much on a tour. Maybe they do. It depends. I think it's about who the audience is. I actually don't think it's about who the artist is and how big the group is.
Okay, well, look, you've all been fantastic, and we could probably talk for another hour about all of this stuff. There are so many comments in the chat box that I don't even know where to start. One just has popped in at the last minute saying, do button badges still sell? I've got absolutely billions of button badges and I still love them. Does anyone buy a button badge?
Yes.
Enamel pin badges are selling really well, or like just metalwork pin badges. Those are those. There you go.
There you go. Product placement, perfect. Cool. Well, I think have a look in the chat box, because you can sign up to the next ISM Trust and Delic session there. You can look at all the comments that people have been saying throughout the discussion. A lot of people have been asking about your company, Tertia. You've obviously done a great way of selling it on the. So how can people get in contact with you? And
please message us on social media, or via our contact form on our website. We're still curating our roster, but we're always available for advice on merchandise and doing it well, so it makes artists money, even if we don't work together, even if it's not the right time. Like, message us. We'll always take the time. We're artists ourselves, and we've all worked in music and entertainment a long time, so we're here to help. Just get at us on social media. We all run different accounts. Someone will get back with a different opinion, but otherwise email us via our website, which is terrible.group.
Cool. And Kellie, it's the same with The Right Project. People can get in contact with you there and you can advise them. Yep. Yeah,
exactly the same. You can find us on Instagram or on our contact form on our website, therightproject.org. And Julie's Bicycle is everywhere online as well, Chiara. People can, if they're having sustainability, environmental issues or quandaries, they can sort of come and ask some advice from you guys.
Yeah, definitely. If you come to the Julie's Bicycle website, there's absolutely loads of sort of guides and top tips that we've pulled together as well on the resources page. And join the Music Declares Emergency campaign and go check out the actions on musicdeclares.net as well.
Yeah, okay. And what's next for you, Fiona? What's happening with Slug Wife?
We've got a couple of releases coming up, and 2 actual standing gigs in Bristol.
Okay.
And that's a little bit scary, but it's like, oh, this pandemic just needs to go away right now.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah.
And John, Delic moves forward, forges forward with every passing second. What's going on with you guys over the next, well, I suppose we'll be back in a few weeks' time. We can discuss it more then, but what's happening?
We're continuing to improve the platform. It's available to sign up. It's a free trial, extended free trial. Just go to www.delic.network and you can sign up. Give it a spin.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you all. Thank you, Kellie, Tertia, Chiara, Fiona, and John. We'll be back on the 9th of September with session 3, An Independent Future, Why Collaboration is Key. We will see you then, but I'll hand back to Maria. Thank you very much for watching. Sorry we went a little bit over time, but so much to talk about, not enough time to do it. And I hope that was useful and inspiring. Cheers.
Thank you, Vic. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate such a great discussion. Very interested. Thank you again, all of you, for tuning in and great questions. The webinar will be available on the Trust website, hopefully from tomorrow, as well as on the Delic website. You can find our webinar library in there will be a chat in the link if you're interested in finding out more about ISM webinars or about membership. Our next webinar in the series, as Vic mentioned, is An Independent Future, Why Collaboration is Key, and will be on the 9th of September at 6 p.m. And again, you can find some more information in the chat. And lastly, again, thank you very much on behalf of the ISM and everyone, and we hope to see you again at our next webinar. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much.